Chaos erupted outside the courthouse today as Jim Jones suddenly confronted Camron in a heated clash that stunned onlookers. The shocking showdown came right after Chrissy's betrayal was brutally exposed, leaving friendships shattered, loyalty questioned, and decades of trust hanging by a thread. What really pushed Jim to the edge? And why was Camron the first target of his rage? The courthouse steps were supposed to be a place of silence that day, a cold and calculated environment, where people came and went, whispering about cases, judgments, and the lives being put on trial inside those walls. But the tension that crackled in the air had nothing to do with the legal proceedings happening within. It was a storm waiting to break, and the moment Jim Jones stepped out of the heavy doors, people sensed something was about to happen. His body language spoke volumes, shoulders tense, fists clenched, jaw set like stone. He wasn't just leaving court. He was carrying an invisible weight that threatened to explode at any second. And then, as fate would have it, standing just a few steps away was Camron. Almost as if destiny itself had choreographed the encounter, spectators gasped when their eyes locked. For years, Jim and Cam had been brothers in music, in business, in the very fabric of Harlem's culture. But now what should have been a reunion of two legends turned into an atmosphere so heavy, it made everyone freeze in place. Jim's face was a storm, and Cam looked as though he already knew the lightning bolt was meant for him. People whispered. In confusion, phones were raised to record, and in those few seconds before the eruption, the betrayal that had shaken everything was written all over Jim's glare. Chrissy's name was already on everyone's lips. The betrayal had hit the streets like wildfire. Word spread that she had been caught in conversations, secret ones that exposed not only disloyalty to Jim, but also a shocking entanglement that seemed to tie back to Cam. Though Cam never openly admitted to anything, the gossip painted a picture too dangerous to ignore. Jim, a man who valued loyalty above all else, had been humiliated in the most personal way possible. And now here they were, outside a courthouse, with emotions raw and the truth dangling like a sharp blade between. Damn, Jim's voice broke the silence first, rough and full of venom. You think I don't know? You think I ain't heard it all? Outside this courthouse, you gon' stand there like you innocent? His words cut through the crowd, drawing all eyes toward Cam. Some bystanders shuffled nervously, expecting fists to fly at any second. Cam, however, didn't move right away. He adjusted his coat, took a deep breath, and shook his head slowly, as though the weight of years was pressing down on him. Jim, you better watch what you say out loud, Cam replied, his voice steady, but sharp. Don't twist this like I went behind your back. Do you know how people talk? You know how they want us at war. But Jim wasn't interested in diplomacy. His anger wasn't the type that could be calmed by logic or smoothed over by excuses. He stepped closer, his voice rising. Talk? Man, this ain't no talk. This is betrayal. My woman, my home, my family. You let it all get mixed up in this mess. And now you want to tell me it's just rumors? Do you think I don't see through you? Every word hit like a hammer, and Cam's jaw tightened. This wasn't just about Chrissy anymore. This was about history, about the Dipset empire they built, the loyalty they preached, the Harlem code they claimed to live by. And Jim, in front of everyone, was tearing it all down in rage. The bystanders couldn't believe what they were witnessing. These weren't just any two men. This was Jim Jones and Camron's the Kings of Harlem, now squaring off like bitter enemies. The courthouse became an arena, and the energy was electric. Even the security guards hesitated, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment unfold. Phones kept recording, capturing every glare, every accusation, every word that threatened to turn into a headline. As Jim's voice thundered through the air, Cam finally stepped forward. His face no longer carried the calm facade. He looked directly into Jim's eyes, and the years of brotherhood seemed to evaporate. You want to come at me like I'm the enemy? After everything we built? You let some whispers about Chrissy break us apart. That's how it is? Then maybe you already made up your mind. His tone wasn't defensive, it was challenging. He was daring Jim to make his move, to let his anger spill into violence. The crowd shifted, sensing the eruption was seconds away. Jim's chest heaved, his fists tightening at his sides. He wanted to swing, to let out the rage burning inside him. But there was more at play. This wasn't just about a fight. It was about public humiliation, about standing tall in front of a city that was watching their every move. Harlem was listening. Hip-hop was listening. And Jim wanted to make sure his message was clear. Betrayal would not be tolerated. Not from Chrissy, not from Cam, not from anyone. The backstory made the moment even more explosive. For years, Chrissy had been Jim's rock, his confidant, the woman who stood by him through the ups and downs of his career. Their relationship wasn't perfect. It had been tested countless times, but they had always managed to push forward. So when whispers surfaced about Chrissy's betrayal, it wasn't just a personal wound, it was a public scar. And the suggestion that Camron, of all people, had a hand in it turned that wound into a gaping hole. The streets didn't need proof. The perception was enough. And perception, in this world, was everything as Jim's words echoed outside. The courthouse, his voice cracked not from weakness, but from the unbearable mix of rage and heartbreak. I trusted you, Cam. You were my brother. We bled together. We fought for this city together, and this is how you do me. Behind closed doors, while the world watches, his voice carried the kind of pain that silenced even the loudest whispers in the crowd. For the first time, some people looked at Cam differently. Maybe the rumors were true. Maybe there really had been something more to Chrissy's betrayal than anyone had admitted. Cam's response came cold and sharp. Don't put your heartbreak on me, Jim. I ain't never touched your woman, and I never would. But if you are too blind to see who's really betraying you, then that's your downfall, not mine. His words were precise, meant to sting, meant to shift the blame back where it started. But for Jim, it only fueled the fire. The tension between them was unbearable now. Like two storms colliding in the same sky, the crowd braced as Jim took one more step forward. Practically nose to nose with Cam. Cameras flashed, voices rose, and the city of New York seemed to hold its breath. This was no longer just a feud. This was a public unraveling of loyalty. A battle that symbolized not just a personal betrayal, but the collapse of an empire built on trust. And in that moment, standing outside the courthouse, Jim Jones and Camron weren't just men, they were warriors in a war that had just begun. A war fueled by betrayal, pride, and the echoes of Harlem's streets. And this was only the beginning. The video spread within minutes. What had started as whispers outside the courthouse instantly became a trending storm across social media. Clips of Jim Jones yelling in Camron's face went viral. Hashtags exploded, and suddenly the world was watching Harlem's two giants go to war in real time. Instagram timelines filled with shaky footage of Jim's rage. Twitter threads broke down every word exchanged. TikTok edits put dramatic music behind the confrontation, amplifying the chaos. To fans, it wasn't just a fight, it was history unraveling. And to Jim Jones, it was a public declaration that his trust had been shattered. Bloggers rushed to dissect the scene. Headlines screamed, "Jim Jones confronts Camron over Chrissy's scandal." While gossip shows replayed the footage on loop, some commentators called it heartbreaking. Remembering the glory days of Dipset when Jim and Cam stood shoulder to shoulder, running Harlem with pride and unity. Others reveled in the drama, pointing fingers at Chrissy, painting her as the wedge that finally broke them apart. But what stung them most was how the betrayal had overshadowed their legacy. Overnight, decades of work were reduced to tabloid gossip and scandal. Inside his car later that evening, Jim seethed in silence. His phone buzzed nonstop, filled with texts from friends, family, and business associates who all wanted answers. His inner circle tried to calm him, telling him to keep his cool too. Address things privately before it spiraled further. But Jim wasn't ready for peace. His pride was on the line, his manhood challenged in front of the world. And the sting of Chrissy's betrayal cut deeper than he could admit. For him, silence was not an option. He needed to respond. He needed to make sure everyone knew the truth, or at least his version of it. Meanwhile, Camron's reaction was the opposite. He went home, sat in front of his computer, and almost seemed amused as he scrolled through the flood of memes and reactions. His face in the courthouse videos had already been turned into GIFs. His calm demeanor contrasted Jim's rage, and people were praising him for keeping it cool. Cam wasn't smiling out of pride. He was calculating. He knew perception was everything, and the longer Jim lashed out publicly, the more Cam could position himself as the victim of misplaced anger. "Let him talk," Cam muttered under his breath. "The louder he screams, the more they'll wonder if he's just covering his own embarrassment." But the streets didn't care about strategy. In Harlem barbershops, on corners, and in late-night conversations, everyone debated the same question. Was Chrissy really disloyal? Rumors piled up like bricks. Some claimed they saw her leaving parties with people she shouldn't have been with. Others insisted she had been sending messages that proved her betrayal. But the most dangerous rumor was the one tying her name directly to Cam. Even without evidence, people ran with it. And as everyone knows, in Harlem, rumors spread faster than truth. Within Dipset's circle, the tension split people in half. Some longtime affiliates sided with Jim, believing he had every right to confront Cam. They echoed his words, saying loyalty was the code. And if Cam had even entertained disloyalty, it was a betrayal of everything they stood for. Others, however, leaned toward Cam, saying Jim was letting his emotions cloud his judgment, that he was destroying bonds without proof. The once united family fractured overnight. Each man's reputation tested like never before. By the following day, paparazzi were camped outside Jim's home, shouting questions about Chrissy and Cam. Jim stormed past them, face hidden under a hood, refusing to answer. But his silence only fueled more speculation. Later that night, he finally broke it, posting a cryptic video on Instagram Live, sitting in a dimly lit room. His face barely visible, he spoke directly to the camera. "Everybody thinks they know what's going on, right? Y'all seen the video. Y'all seen me outside the courthouse, and now the streets talking like they know the whole truth. Now let me tell you something. Loyalty ain't optional. When you get people in your circle that cross the line, it doesn't matter if it's whispers or receipts. Respect has been broken. And once that's broken, ain't no putting it back together." His words sent shockwaves. Fans flooded the comments, begging him to clarify if Cam really had something with Chrissy. But Jim refused to drop names. His silence spoke louder than confirmation. To his supporters, that was proof enough. To his critics, it was nothing but emotional rambling. Cam wasted no time responding. Just hours later, he posted a slick video of himself draped in designer clothes, cruising through Harlem with his crew. In the background, his own music blasted through the speakers. Then he looked at the camera and smirked. Funny how people love to point fingers when they can't control their own house. "Don't put your problems on me, boy. Handle your business before you come to mine." The clip went viral instantly, and fans took sides even more aggressively. The feud wasn't just personal anymore, it was spilling into their careers. Promoters began questioning whether they could book Dipset-related shows without chaos erupting. Industry insiders whispered that labels were watching closely, wondering if the brand they built together was collapsing. What had once been a symbol of unity and Harlem, pride was now being reduced to a public soap opera. But perhaps the most devastating blow came when Chrissy herself finally broke her silence. Cornered by paparazzi while leaving a boutique, she stopped and stared directly into the cameras. Her voice was calm, but her eyes revealed a storm. "I don't owe anyone any explanations but Jim," she said firmly. "The rest of y'all can keep talking, keep spreading lies. But I know what's real, and Jim knows what's real too. It's all I'm gonna say." Then she walked away, leaving reporters shouting questions that went unanswered. Her statement did little to calm the storm. Some believed her, convinced that the entire narrative was just another example of gossip destroying lives. Others thought she was playing damage control, carefully choosing words to avoid exposing the truth. But for Jim, those words only deepened his conflict. If she really was innocent, then had he destroyed his brotherhood with Cam for nothing? Or was Chrissy manipulating the situation, trying to keep the truth buried beneath loyalty and appearances? The days passed. The feud became bigger than anyone anticipated. It wasn't just about Jim and Cam anymore. It became a symbol of broken loyalty in hip-hop, of friendships turned sour, of the thin line between brotherhood and betrayal. Radio shows debated it daily. Podcasts picked apart every angle. And fans demanded answers that no one was willing to give. Behind closed doors, Jim's anger boiled. But it was no longer pure rage. It was mixed with confusion, doubt, and paranoia. Every text message from Chrissy felt suspicious. Every conversation with Cam replayed in his mind like a puzzle he couldn't solve. His pride wanted to believe he was right, that his confrontation outside the courthouse had been justified. But his heart, buried under the layers of betrayal, kept asking the question he didn't want to face. What if I just burned everything for nothing? Meanwhile, Cam doubled down on his stance. Surrounded by his crew, he projected confidence, making public appearances with a smile, as if the scandal barely touched him. But behind that mask, he too wrestled with frustration. He had always known. Jim was emotional, quick to anger, but he hadn't expected the fallout to reach this level. Now, his own name was entangled in betrayal rumors. And whether or not they were true, perception was threatening to stain his legacy. And as Harlem watched their kings fall apart, one truth became clear. The bond between Jim Jones and Camron had been broken, maybe forever. The only question left was whether this war would end in reconciliation or complete destruction, and the world hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. The feud that had started as a tense moment outside the courthouse was now uncontrollable fire. Harlem buzzed with conversations about it every night, from diners to rooftop parties, and everywhere the same question rang out. What really happened between Chrissy, Jim, and Cam? The betrayal had become bigger than just gossip. It was a cultural storm, dragging the legacies of both men through the mud. Jim Jones couldn't escape it. Everywhere he went, someone asked about Cam, about Chrissy, about that infamous courthouse. Seeing the betrayal gnawed at him like poison, making it impossible to focus on music, family, or even business. His crew told him to let it go, to protect his legacy, but pride wouldn't let him. He couldn't sleep at night replaying Cam's smirk in his head, replaying Chrissy's vague comments, wondering if the woman he had stood by for years had truly crossed a line that could never be forgiven. Cam, on the other hand, thrived in the chaos. He played the game with the media like a master chess player. Every time Jim lashed out, Cam responded with calculated calmness, almost mocking in tone. On one podcast appearance, he laughed off the entire scandal, saying, "If I wanted Chrissy, I could have had her years ago. That's not my lane. Jim is just mad at his own house falling apart." His words cut deep, turning Jim's private heartbreak into public humiliation. But the real twist came when leaked messages hit the internet. Screenshots surfaced on gossip blogs, claiming to show private exchanges between Chrissy and someone, saved only as C. The tone of the messages was flirtatious, intimate, and undeniably suspicious. One line read, "You know Jim doesn't get me like you do. Sometimes I wonder if I chose the wrong one." Another said, "If we ever got caught, it would ruin everything. But you make it hard to resist." Fans lost their minds. See, it could have been anyone, but the streets didn't need more than a single letter to connect the dots. They immediately pointed to Camron. The betrayal rumors exploded tenfold. Radio hosts roasted Jim on air, saying he had been clowning himself by staying with Chrissy all these years, only for her to play him like this. Memes flooded timelines, portraying Cam as the sly conqueror and Jim as the wounded soldier. For Jim, it was unbearable. The screenshots weren't verified, but perception didn't care about proof. The world believed, and that was enough to crush him. Late one night, Jim took to Instagram again, his face twisted with fury. This time, he didn't hold back. "All y'all laughing at me, making memes, acting like this, some game, this ain't no joke. My life, my family, my respect to y'all, playing with it. Cam, you sit there acting like you're innocent, but you know what it is. You know what happened? You broke the code. You violated. And when I see you again, it ain't gonna be no words. It's up." His voice cracked with raw pain as he ended the live, leaving thousands of viewers stunned. Cam fired back with a brutal diss track just 2 days later. Over a menacing beat, he spit venom-laced bars aimed directly at Jim, mocking his relationship struggles, hinting at Chrissy's betrayal and painting himself as untouchable. The track went viral instantly, with fans quoting the harshest lines on Twitter and DJs spinning it in clubs. The diss wasn't just lyrical, it was psychological warfare. Cam had weaponized the scandal, turning it into art. And Jim couldn't escape it. The war spilled into their circle even harder. Longtime Dipset affiliates picked sides openly now. Interviews surfaced of former crew members dragging Jim's name, saying his downfall was inevitable because he let his emotions rule him. Others slammed Cam, accusing him of crossing the ultimate line by even entertaining Chrissy. Harlem was split in two, the once united Dipset flag now flying tattered and divided. And then Chrissy reappeared. Sitting down for a televised interview, she tried to clear her name. Dressed in all black, her tone was measured but emotional. "I never betrayed Jim. Those messages. Fake. Anybody can put together screenshots these days." Camron is like, "Family, we may not be close now, but I never crossed that line with him. I love Jim. I've always loved Jim, and people trying to destroy what we built need to stop." Her words were powerful, but the damage was already done. Viewers dissected every blink, every pause, every shaky breath, insisting she was lying. The comments section exploded with people saying she is guilty. Look at her body language. Others defended her fiercely, saying Jim needed to trust the woman who'd stood by him for over a decade. But the interview only added fuel to the fire. It didn't end the scandal. It magnified it. Jim, however, wasn't convinced. The doubt in his heart was too heavy. Every time he looked at Chrissy, he saw betrayal, whether it existed or not. Their home turned cold. Conversations became arguments, and love became suspicion. The betrayal, real or imagined, had already won. Behind the scenes, industry power players started pulling strings. Some urged Jim and Cam to reconcile for the sake of business. The world wants to see Dipset on stage again. One promoter begged, "Y'all could turn this drama into millions." But the wounds ran too deep. For Jim, it wasn't about money, it was about pride. For Cam, it wasn't about brotherhood, it was about proving he couldn't be broken. The final straw came at a major New York event where both men were scheduled to appear. Security was tight, rumors swirled about a potential showdown, and fans packed the venue waiting for history to unfold. When Jim arrived, the energy shifted instantly. He scanned the room with fire in his eyes, his crew surrounding him like soldiers. Minutes later, Cam entered, cool as ever, rocking a smirk that drove Jim into a rage. The two locked eyes across the room, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. Cameras flashed, recording every second. Jim moved first, shoving through the crowd, heading straight for Cam. His voice thundered over the music. "You think this over? Ah, this just starting." Before security could react, Jim lunged, fists flying, the feud erupting into physical chaos. Screams filled the venue as crews clashed, bottles shattered, and security swarmed to break it up. The scene was pure madness, Harlem history written in violence. The footage hit the internet within minutes. Headlines declared it the official end of Dipset unity. Fans mourned, others celebrated, and the industry looked on in disbelief. Jim and Cam, once brothers who built an empire, had reduced it to rubble over betrayal and pride. And as the dust settled, one haunting question lingered in the air. Was Chrissy truly guilty, or had rumors and whispers destroyed everything without proof? For Jim Jones, the answer didn't matter anymore. Trust was broken, loyalty shattered, and his bond with Camron was gone forever. Betrayal had won not just over his relationship, but over an entire legacy. And Harlem would never forget the day brotherhood turned to war. This story proves that when loyalty is questioned, everything can fall apart. Friendships, families, even entire legacies. But the truth is, we've only scratched the surface of this explosive situation. Was Chrissy truly guilty of betrayal? Or has Jim allowed pride and paranoia to destroy one of hip-hop's most legendary brotherhoods? And Camron, was he unfairly dragged into the fire? Or did he play a deeper role in this storm than he's willing to admit? Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Jim was justified in confronting Cam the way he did? Or did Cam handle the situation like a master, letting the world see Jim unravel? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters in this conversation, and if you've been locked in from start to finish, don't stop here. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter in hip-hop's most shocking dramas. Share this video with a friend who remembers Dipset's golden era. And let's keep this debate alive, because trust me, the story isn't over. And when the next twist drops, you'll want to be here first.